Hello everyone, welcome to another week of 12 weeks of home ownership. I have my guy Devin here, who is actually an appraisal apprentice, and he's the first guy in the chair, so welcome to the chair guy.
Thank you for having me. Thank
Of course.
It's a pleasure.
So I wanted to get an appraiser here is just to talk to you guys about the process, the difference between an inspection and an appraisal. These are two things that are that you will go through in the home buying process. The appraisal is mandated by the lender, as they will not lend you money for anything that does not come of value from the appraiser. So Devin, tell us, why you got into appraisals and, how does the process start to work and, just go from there.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of
Tamara.
course.
I really appreciate it. The first guy on the chair.
The first guy in the chair.
Hopefully I set the tone right.
Yeah.
But I got into appraisals, most people actually get into appraisal fields not right after they get out of college. It's usually around that like mid-30s age where they're trying to figure out where in life that they're going. And I have to give credit when credit's due. He who findeth a wife findeth a good thing. And she asked me a question when I was in a transition of career, what is it that you want from your career? Not what you want to do, but what is you want? And I started listing off a certain qualities, certain aspects of what I wanted from my life that provided a standard of living. And she was like, you may want to consider appraisal. So I looked it up. Got into school, went to school while we were planning a wedding.
Okay.
And
kudos to you.
Yeah, and I did it. And now I'm an appraisal apprentice, and I am fortunate enough to be one of the few apprentices that is actually under the supervision of a black appraiser, Jack Sonso. And under 5% of all appraisers in this nation identify as black.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you how limited that we are.
Yeah.
And so very proud to be led by a black appraiser and very proud to be an appraisal apprentice because I'm learning so much.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. Yeah. So can you tell us what the difference is between an appraisal and an inspection? A lot of first-time home buyers, we hear about the inspection, we hear about the process of when you get a home, you want to get it inspected. But when I purchased my first home, I didn't know what an appraisal was. I didn't know the appraiser was coming. I didn't know that I can actually even go to the appraisal appointment. Like, I knew nothing about it. So what is the difference between the inspection and the appraisal?
Well, an appraisal is an act or a process of an opinion of value that is given with competency, impartial, and objectivity. Okay. So in essence, what that means is someone that can give an unbiased opinion of value for the market. So a home inspection, which often gets, misconstrued with an appraisal, a home inspection is a little bit more in-depth detail about the functionality of the house. Okay. So as an appraiser, I'm walking into a subject property, and I am noticing the condition of the property, the materials that are used to be able to make the house. I'm looking for visual things that may stand out to the average buyer. Okay. And home inspector goes a little bit deeper and digs deeper. A home inspector is going to run your shower water for a certain amount of time. They're going to get on top of your roof. As an appraiser, I'm not getting on top of the roof. I don't appraise value on top of the roof, but I can be able to visualize to be able to see inside the home. Hey, those are water stains on the ceiling. Right. That would come to have an general assumption to be able to realize that may come from the roof. But the home inspector goes into the deep functionality of the home. The appraiser takes an overall outside view and compares other properties that may be similar, which we call comparables, to be able to assess the value of that property. So hopefully that clears up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell my clients, and even if you're watching this and you for some reason don't choose me as your realtor should give you comparables when you are making an offer on the house. So those may not be the same comparables that the appraiser is using because, it may be a more recent home that's sold since your realtor is giving it to you. They may be looking at some other things or a smaller window, smaller radius. But you should, in essence, have some comparables already to kind of have a gist of what this appraiser is going to be looking for?
I totally concur. When an appraiser comes to the property, any data that you can provide us as the appraiser is certainly welcomed. Whether we use it or not, that's different. But comparables is one of the key things that I'm sure will come up in this interview several times, because it's so very important. And it's really good when a realtor can be able to provide us those comparables. But like you said, sometimes we have, just how realtors have their special ways of finding specific properties. We have special ways of research that we're taught and we're trained through school, and we're guided by our USPAP principles, which is the ethics of what appraisers abide by. Sometimes we have certain methods of research that will be able to provide a better, more comparable, property to the subject property that we're appraising that day. So, absolutely.
And who pays for the appraisal? Because y'all not cheap.
No, we're not cheap, because we're in high demand and we're very much needed in the home buying process. But who pays for the appraisal? Well, the appraiser gets paid by its client.
Okay.
Whoever hires the appraiser, that if someone may be going for an individual appraiser, maybe they want a second opinion because they may be a buyer and they didn't, or they may be a buyer and they didn't like the first appraisal that was done on the house. Most of the times, it's usually a lender that provides us with those payments. And so, and there's something, if I can clarify.
Yes.
Just because who's paying the appraiser does not mean that the appraiser is working for you.
Yes, correct. Because theoretically, the appraiser comes from a pool.
Okay.
From this lender, right? This lender is pulling
from third party.
From a third party, right? It's not like your lender can say, "Hey, Devin." Well, they used to before 2008.
Used to. Not anymore.
Hey, Devin, I got this house. I need you to appraise it for me. Now it's more objective.
Absolutely.
And they want it to be more removed from the process to not make it seem like an unfair
Absolutely
value.
There were a lot of home practices back in the past that led to some of the appraisal bias that we deal with today in America. And that's why there needs to be parties like third parties that are the go-in-between to be able to hire the appraisers so that you can have that impartial and objectivity. Because I, as an appraiser, even though the bank may hire me for an appraisal, I'm not going out to the property to meet a list price for the property, if that makes sense. So a person may be selling their property and they're like, I got to get that $350,000. I'm gonna hire this appraiser. The bank may hire me, and the home is up for sale. But that doesn't mean when I come out there that I'm working to be able to hit that number. That's unethical in all senses of the word.
So when the appraisal comes back lower or higher, are you all informed of what the list price is from the bank?
We have access to those records. So let's say if a home is under contract, we have copies of that contract. Because that's data that we need as appraisers to be able to understand the lay of the land. To be able to understand if there were any seller concessions or anything that makes the deal unique. We need to be able to understand, because every single piece of data affects the data that we have to research. So if it comes in below, I want to stay on the point of your question. So yes, we have to come in there with an impartial mind and an objective mindset.
Okay, so just for clarification, the bank pays you. However, depending upon who the lender is, the lender may collect money either up front for your appraisal, because some lenders just collect money up front, and that could be anywhere from $500 to $800 depending upon the turnaround of what I've seen. If we need a rush appraisal, those have a higher price point. And sometimes you will be able to pay for your appraisal at closing, and it'll be a part of your closing disclosure. But in all cases, 100% of the time, you as the buyer is paying for the appraisal. It just depends on when you are paying for the appraisal. But your money comes from the lender.
Yeah, my money comes from the lender, And if for any reason, that process, which you just clearly explained, may have to be repeated all over again in case the appraiser may have to come back out for a final inspection. As long as the lender pays us, we're going to be able to get back out there. But if we need to go back out there, we still get the money from the lender, and they got to coordinate with the client.
And believe it that it's always going to come back to the buyer. Nothing is free. The lender is not paying for anything free. So how long does it take to actually get an appraisal back? I've heard, you guys are backed up, and it may take a week or two, or you may have the number but not the report, and sometimes I can rush it and pay a couple extra $100 to get it rushed. So what's your typical turnaround time?
One, it depends, because it depends on that appraiser's workload. And as we know, there's a general consensus that appraisers are backed up, hence the limited amount of them that are in the field. It is a retiring field. But on general, an appraisal can take anywhere between 4 business days to 8 business days on average. Now, if we talk about a rush, which tends to happen, particularly in this market, that can be, upgraded to about maybe 2 to 3 business days, but it all depends upon the appraiser's workload. Me being as a appraiser apprentice, I have been able to see this workload up front and personal, and rush orders tend to sometimes, they take a couple business days to do it. But if you find yourself in that rush scenario, it certainly is worth it, because you never know, that appraisal could end up making, the home worth a certain value that may be better for the buyer, depending on whoever hires. So it certainly is worth it. But that's the general time frame, 4 to 8 business days.
And what are some, I would say, red flags, I guess, that can be looked at as an appraisal? I mean, I know we're looking at a number, right? That report, a lot of times, yes, we are looking at that number first, but there's still a whole report that goes along with this that you should look into and look at, and seeing how the appraisal is determining value. But are there any red flags, or does that exist when, working with an appraisal?
So, and I want to make sure I got your question correct. What's any red flags from the appraiser's point of view when they go into a property? No problem. One, if you are a member of the wrong sports team. Just joking.
Or if you have any other fraternity. So,
if you're not a Sigma, then no, that's just a joke. But there's some red flags that catches the appraiser's eye. One of those red flags is if I come and there's a thing called obsolescence. An obsolescence is something that detracts from, that is a clear distraction or a clear problem with the property that is affecting the sustainability or the livability of a property. So if I'm going through a house, and let's use that example from, if I look up and I get into the living room, I'm taking my pictures, and I look up and there's like these huge wet spots that are on the ceiling. That is a problem that needs to be addressed. That can be considered an obsolescence. Another example of that is let's say if there was a bad storm, and just so happened by the day the appraiser is assigned to come out to that property, that in the backyard there's fallen power lines. That is a functional obsolescence. The average buyer would not be comfortable purchasing this home, so that needs to be remedied. Another example that I heard when I was in appraisal school is, sometimes, let's say if you live in a community where you're very close up on your neighbors, right? Let's just say that neighbor has 2 bigger dogs that are very loud and rambunctious, that are consistently barking and could potentially get over that fence. As the appraiser, I'm supposed to be able to take pictures of the property. Now, even though it isn't on the subject property, if I come out into the backyard area and the first thing I see is, vicious dogs barking at me, I have to be able to just notate that in the report. Not saying that it would add this amount or take away this amount of value, but that's something that would be considered a detractor from the average buyer. If there is a home and let's say the bedrooms do not have doors installed on all of them. That is an obsolescence. Someone needs a privacy to the bathroom or the bathroom. We've seen it.
Right.
So those are some red flags. I'll tell you another red flag that hit me. Just how I've been fortunate enough to be able to inspect very beautiful new construction properties. I've also had to inspect properties that are wanting in some TLC, so to say. I walked into a property one time and there was a overpowering stench of urine that was throughout the property. And that was throughout the floors. You could see it and you could smell it everywhere, and it was overpowering. As an appraiser, I need to be able, even though I can't prove what that is, I still need to notate, hey, there is a strong odor that is on the first floor. You know, so there's things like that the appraisers have to be able to notate.
And does that decrease value?
It depends. That all depends. There is no exact number, but it is an assumption to assume. It is a general assumption that it would detract from the average buyer purchasing that property.
I mean, if I don't have a door in my bedroom, right? If all the doors are missing, I feel like you should be able to deduct $50 per door. It doesn't work that way?
No, there isn't a deduction. There would be a deduction. So there would be a deduction in terms of the condition of the property, but I cannot give you as an appraiser an accurate, this is how much this is going to detract from this property, because it all depends about the market.
Right.
You know, bedrooms and bathrooms in one area of the city may be different in another area of the city. So you can never say that this is exactly going to take away this amount. But if it's a clear, if you have, pet feces all around the floor, we need to be able to notate that.
That should be like $5,000 gone.
I guarantee it will not work out for you. Now, however much, that's up to the appraiser and their research that is involved in it, but it will detract.
But you all don't have like a spreadsheet that says bedroom door 50. Like there's no.
I know exactly where you're going. Are there specific values for
specific things
in a house? It depends on the market. It all depends on the market because it changes. Let's think about DC, right? DC on one side of the street, you can have houses that will be so-and-so amount. You go 2 minutes walking north, that house, those house ranges may raise $200,000.
Right.
So that will then be the difference.
But a door is a door.
A door is a door. But a door on First Street and a door on F Street may be different.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Even though the Home Depot is a different house. All right, guys. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, Devin, for coming out and sharing your knowledge and information about appraisals. I hope you all got some great information from today to be able to take into your journey of home ownership. Thank you again for tuning in to 12 Weeks of Home Ownership, and I will see you all next week. Have a great week. Bye, guys.